great group of people, which they don't. They have Jasmine Crockett, a low IQ person. They have AOC's low IQ. You give her an IQ test, have her pass like the exams that I decided to take when I was at Walter Reed. Those are very hard, they're really aptitude tests, I guess, in a certain way, but they're cognitive tests. Let AOC go against Trump. Let Jasmine go against Trump. I don't think Jasmine, the first couple of questions are easy. A tiger, an elephant, a giraffe, you know. When you get up to about 5 or 6, and then when you get up to 10 and 20 and 25, they couldn't come close to answering any of those questions.
Please read out for Walter Reed.
Then they start.
Oh, sorry. There you are, David.
Oh, was I speaking there? Did you hear me?
Yeah. Yep,
Okay.
you're in. Now you're in.
Very, very hard. Very, very hard. They start asking about tigers and bears, and then they start asking numbers.
I was just down at Walter Reed. I decided to take those tests. They didn't say, "Sir, we need you to take these tests about if you can identify a rhinoceros." They were actually giving these tests to the smartest geniuses the world has ever seen, and I was just happened to be walking past. I'm like, I can take that. I'll take that. I'll decide to take that. You're welcome.
It's like the strength thing at the arcade.
Right, exactly.
It's like, just give it a go. Yeah, I mean, Matt, have you ever had concussion protocol? You ever have to take those tests
Never.
during your football
Nope.
glory days? I've had many concussions, my friends. But yeah, and it is very funny. Like, you take those as early on in the season, when you're normal as a baseline, and it's like the easiest test in the world. And when you're concussed, you're like, I cannot fucking figure out any of this shit. So, I feel for you, Trump. I know it could be really hard. The first couple questions are easy, but it does get a little bit more difficult as time goes on. Folks, we got a fat ass show for you. I mean, we got a lot to get into, man. We can't be messing around. We can't be messing around like the president of the United States of America. We got a really great conversation coming up with Michael Burns. We're going to be diving into the fractures on the right. I'm always excited to see that, it's not just a left-wing issue. In fact, the right wing in many ways is way more disorganized and nuts. They just have a little bit more money and are a little bit more, I don't know, immoral.
In RPGs, you can pick the corp. I think Cyberpunk 2077 has this. If you pick the corporate faction, it's a little bit easier.
Totally, it's easy mode,
is
100%.
Like the Constitution and all that, and especially the gerrymandering and different laws attacking voting rights and stuff. It's sort of like you have a benefit. You kind of don't need to be as disciplined on say maybe the media front. It's funny when people on the left will say the left needs to stop fighting, and then because that's why it loses. It's I don't know if that's necessarily the reason why the left loses. I think it's because the right is also, like you said, extremely fractured right now.
It's like playing football in the ACC. No, we got that. We're also going to be talking about with Michael Stoicism. Why is it that all these hustle and grind guys keep on telling me I need to read Marcus Aurelius? Really, really was great having him on the program. His return, also follow and keep up with his channel. And then, Matt and I are going to keep hanging out. We have some Ted Cruz stuff. We're going to talk Graham Plattner, Dan Osborne in the post game, patreon.com/leftreckoning to get access to that. And in fact, if you're watching now on the free side and you get a little ad, you don't want to watch the ads anymore, we do the whole show nonstop, no interruptions, immediate in the post game immediately after the main show, all on the Patreon feed. You can go sign up, $5 a month keeps us going. You get access to that, plus these bonus episodes, and we have been putting out some bangers lately, if I do say so myself. So you're not going to want to miss out on any of that, friends. And I will say, we have been teasing a major announcement for going on 4 months now. But we are finally very close to doing that. We will make sure our patrons hear first. But starting next week, there are some major changes coming, not just on this program, but on a few others. Some things are coming back to life that you're really, really going to be excited to join us for. So keep your eye out on social media, on the Patreon, to keep up with what we're doing. We're still doing the show. Don't worry about that. But we're adding, not subtracting.
Little shake up, little things being shaken and stirred.
But folks, I want to talk about the SNAP benefits. But before I do, just a quick public service announcement to all my good friends in Texas. There is an election right now, and it is going to be one of those that is extremely sleepy, where only this kind of most antisocial, sociopathic folks in the state are going to show up in droves to try to push a whole host of right-wing nonsense. There are 17 constitutional amendments being put forward. Not all of them are crazy or bad, but there are a lot of Looney Tunes stuff, including one we're very much against capital gains tax ban, trying to put that in the state constitution of Texas. So if you are in Texas, I do highly suggest you go out and vote. It's early voting right now. It's a lot easier to do it. I know it's a little bit annoying to kind of keep up and have to write in a little notebook what all these propositions are, but it's very, very important because if you don't, they will. But let's get to this main thing. And I want to talk about SNAP and these cuts, which I know, Matt, you have some of the facts and numbers we can get into in a second. But, I just wanted to come out and talk kind of personally about this. I mean, this is a personal thing for me. When I grew up, my family was very poor, and we relied on these kind of programs in order to make ends meet, literally to feed ourselves. And one of the things I really respect about the way I grew up is, my mother worked very, very hard. The system does not reward hard work. But my mom also did a lot to make sure that we always kind of had what we needed. And one of the major things was social programs, and food programs to make sure that the poor working class American families can feed their kids. Very, very lucky because there's a lot of parts of the world that doesn't happen. Like I'm a healthy, tall guy. Like if I lived in other countries, I wouldn't have had that experience, right? That is why, one of the successes that you see, with people like Lula and then a lot of these movements is like literally just seeing what happens with the height of kids because they're actually getting adequate nutrition as they're growing up, right? There is a nasty world out there that the right is trying to build, where we do bring back mass starving of the poor, or just create a situation where there are just literal physical differences in how you can see what socioeconomic class somebody is, just by looking at them because they don't have access to nutrition, right? That is the kind of hierarchical world that this antisocial, disgusting, anti-human right wing wants to build. And this is not just a kind of accidental consequence of some of their hardline policies. This is a goal because they have always known that getting rid of programs like SNAP will be massively unpopular, right? That's what they've always been told. I think their hope is here. If they can get it cut for a little while, and then they'll say like, hey, the sky didn't fall, right? You guys accepted it, right? We're going to go all the way, right? We got to get rid of these kind of things. That's their goal here, right? They tried to make these systems unwieldy and difficult in the first place, so that they can try to build up a support to do what they want to do, which is cut them. But Matt, I mean, let's get into this a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a good piece in the Hill. SNAP funding expiration set to hit 40 million people. I mean, that's the main number. 40 million food stamp beneficiaries expected to receive less help or no help with grocery bills due to this shutdown. Now this is a choice. There are politics, and if you follow this shutdown, you'll know that Trump is moving money around, sometimes from the pockets of like shadowy wealthy beneficiaries into like troop members' pockets. But there is actually provision for this sort of scenario. The USDA has a $5 to $6 billion in a contingency fund that's been put aside for emergencies. They could tap that. Trump administration is deciding not to because they think it's not, just they're not going to call in the emergency because they like that leverage of 40 million people, again, not getting groceries. USDA stated will not use the contingency fund because this whole thing was, quote, manufactured by Democrats. Now, Republicans have a trifecta, which means they have the executive branch, they have the Senate, and the House. Trump could do whatever he wants right now. They could get rid of the filibuster so you don't even need to negotiate with the Democrats and just pass whatever they wanted to right now. They don't want to do that because that would be politically unpalatable. They want to be able to look at say the Democrats voted with this too. And because they know that whatever they get the Democrats to sign on to is not going to be popular with their base. USDA, some states are trying to move money around to deal with this. This isn't just blue states. Texas, Oklahoma, California, and New York are the states involving that. And yeah, that's And important to mention this: the Big Beautiful Bill Act that like our boy Josh Hawley and other folks voted for, and then lamented the Medicaid cuts to, also had the largest SNAP cuts in the history of that program. And you remember we talked about this in the context of our abundance agenda, which is the original programs that moved the bountiful harvest of abundance from our plains to the communities where people eat it. That was just cut. And so the Republicans are sitting here using, not only withholding funding that was put aside by Congress, who is theoretically supposed to be in charge of the power of the purse in this country. That's why you vote for your representatives. They put aside 5 to 6. It wouldn't cover the $8 billion shortfall, but it could go towards it and make it easier for these states to make up what's lacking. Instead, they're deciding, after cutting it with the largest cut in history, to also not use emergency funds to keep people fed. They would rather starve people because they want this is again just to play politics, because they could do all of this without a single Democratic vote if they wanted to get rid of the filibuster.
I think that's like an important point, is they want to play politics, but it's also to what end. And I think that it is notable, as you said, Matt, that like they have the capacity to kind of push these things through without needing to negotiate, but they need to have the boogeyman. They need to have the enemy, because they want to try to blame this on the other side. And we're seeing that right now. Josh Hawley, who you mentioned, Matt, who for a long time has been, doing frankly a whisper campaign. I don't think average folks really think of him in this way, but as like, he's like a more working class or focused Republican. He wrote this in the New York Times opinion today. Josh Hawley, no American should go to bed hungry. The federal government has been shut down for 28 days and counting. That's 28 days too long. Congress must not let that in. America is a great and wealthy nation, and our most important wealth is our generosity of spirit. Some Jesus stuff. It talks about how many people are going to be hurt. Last year, SNAP and release hit about 42 million. That's over 12% of the American population. Well, interesting that, you've been such a champion of this, by the way, just so being so devastated to have to vote for the immiseration of folks, right? It's kind of nasty talk out of both sides of his mouth. So he says, all these things about all these good people, right? Who are, kind of suffering. And he has pushed this new bill to kind of to fund SNAP basically throughout the shutdown. And it's got some signatories from the Republican Party. I'm just going to read them out here. James Lankford from Oklahoma, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, Susan Collins from Maine, Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, Bernie Moreno from Ohio, Kevin Kramer, North Dakota, Bill Cassidy, Louisiana, Katie Britt, Alabama, John Husted, Ohio, and John Cornyn from the state of Texas. And that has also been signed on by Democrat from Vermont, Pete Welch. So kind of odd, that they're doing two things at once, right? They've been leading this push to wage war on these services, and now you're hearing this kind of very public lamenting. Well, why is that? I think it's because they know and understand that the consequences of this are going to be immense. And they're going to be seen, and they're going to be felt, and they're going to be understood by millions and millions of people. So what we're seeing from the Republican Party right now is an attempt to try to shift blame upon the other side for something that is firmly in their control. Now, to note that the Democrats have now put forward their own version of this bill. The senator from New Mexico has kind of put forward a Democrat version of this as well. So, we're getting this moment where the Republicans are basically trying to shirk their responsibility for something that they are responsible for. Because I think that they realize, in particular, like Cornyn and Hawley, that this is going to be very, very bad politically. And, I think, as people know, this isn't to kind of excuse Jeffries and Schumer, who have played a fundamental role in getting us to this kind of crisis. No doubt about it. But let's also not forget the Republican Party that has kind of got their foot on the gas pedal.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of reservations on the Dem side of things because Schumer and Jeffrey should have stepped down from leadership last year.
Yeah.
They failed. Chuck Schumer, in particular, we talked about him in 2016, talking about the suburban strategy. He's a failure. What are we gonna? How many? We gonna give him a full decade to fail? They should have stepped down. They can't message this moment. So what you've had is people like Bernie and AOC, who are still marginalized in terms of the levers of power in this party, pushed forward because they can fucking talk, and that's a dangerous thing because I don't know how this is going to play out. And they've been given, like, now they could hurt all the capital that they're building up for something that they're not even in the driver's seat of. And you know, there's still, like, you still have Chuck Schumer pushing Zionists like Haley Stevens in Michigan. I feel very worried about, you know, how this might play out.
I think there's a lot of talking. This is kind of branching out to Zoran conversations, but, like, you know, there has been a kind of victory lap moment, I think, where you've seen a lot of Democrats who were not very pro Zoran recently, or at least were very hesitant, now are coming around because writing looks on the wall, like it's on the wall. You don't want to be the last Cuomo supporter. You know, so it has kind of put, particularly, I think, AOC and to a certain extent Bernie Sanders in the limelight, you know, right next to Zoran, because, like, yeah, these are very charismatic speakers. They're speaking, you know, the truth. They're way more popular than your average Democrat. But yeah, I think that you're right. You know, that you need to be careful. Like, I think that, like, you need to not be timid about taking power and advantage when you have it, right? So I can't say fault them for taking this,
Right.
but there's no doubt about it that the Democratic Party has no real interest in reforming around these figures. You know, it really is the question is, like, are you able to just basically force them through the popularity of your movement, your moment? And I think that if you're going to do that, you probably need to take, you know, a line of kind of criticizing the party that has got us to the situation that we're in. You know, and I get that, like, that's probably not going to be the first bit of the stump speech, but probably is going to need to be part of it if you're serious about it, because as we're seeing with the polling here, a lot of people do blame the Republicans for the shutdown, right? It is something that I think the average American understands. What Democrats continually fail on is that they think that that is necessarily going to be seen as, oh, well, the Democrats are good at it. No, most people are like, oh, yeah, you know, they're the ones who are pushing it. We understand how the system works. They're the ones in power. But the reason they're in power and the reason that it hasn't been stopped is also because the Democrats are ineffective, right? And this is a real danger, which is, like, where you can see something like this that is going to be horrible and have massive human suffering consequences. And that, one, you think that you're going to be able to get kind of cheap political points off of it. That's just disgusting and anti-human. And two, you know, thinking that you are just going to be able to get political points off of it, because you probably aren't, especially if you're not seen as, like, really fighting or having a plan or an alternative. Because frankly, in this country, gridlock government shutdowns have just been a part of our politics for years. And a reason for that has been, like, yes, the obstinance of the Republican Party and all that, but also the lack of vision and the lack of rootedness and connection amongst working class people and everyday voters in this country in their relationship to the Democratic Party.
Adam Gentleson, the staffer who was at Fetterman, who now is doing, like, a sort of centrist sort of thing, was saying in the run-up to Kamala's defeat that the American electorate hasn't experienced a revocation of rights like they did under the fall of Roe versus Wade, and banking that the bros like us were discounting how much Americans would turn out in 2024 because of abortion as an issue, because they were banking on it. They leveraged themselves against it, and it failed.
And ironically, they think instead of, like, again, because they saw that, like, abortion rights are popular with the American public, right? But the thing is like, they don't realize this connection is that people do not believe that you are going to be able to deliver on that. I mean, like, they talked about it a lot as a kind of a threat, frankly, for places that, like, don't have abortion bans. But it wasn't something that was going to pick up folks who are looking to kind of push back against it, because there was no real kind of Democrat push in the election, or, like, something that was believable on a visceral level that got people to show up and vote for you, that the Democratic Party had any real plan to push back against what we saw from the Supreme Court and then conservative-run states. Let's look at some big minds here, Matt, because I just want to remind people of what we're up against and who this Republican Party is. You have not seen this yet, Matt. I just want people to remember these faces, remember these names, and remember this party as we do see the consequences of a bunch of millionaires deciding that over 40 million people shouldn't have access to food, right? I want you to remember who these folks are. This is Beau French, who is the leader of the GOP here in Tarrant County in Texas. November 1st is the day when this will go in effect. Beau French says November 1st, 2025 is National Chimp Out Day. It's going to be lit. I want to be very clear about this. This is not a troll account. This is not some random person. This is a person in a position of influence and authority within the Republican Party, which, by the way, is the ruling party and has been the ruling party in the state of Texas since I was at like 2, right? That is what is this party right now. And now, of course, Beau French is going to do this kind of thing where he's like, I didn't know.
Sorry, what's that second tweet? Just put that back up
sorry.
there. The no snap and the N is in parentheses. Why would the letter N? Why would a guy that makes a Nazi joke like that put an N in parentheses?
Yeah, that's an
I'm just guessing.
one.
I haven't seen that before, but
I think that's I don't think that's a bad point. But could you just kind of paint that for folks who aren't familiar with what that was when that was an internet thing?
I'm actually not familiar with it. I'm just inferring that he's referring to the N word there.
Yeah. I don't think that's off base.
Right.
Someone said this is racist. It was not. It was a racist one used against Elon. It just means freaking out. So, okay. Classic thing where they just don't do that. We got a little bit of our boy Jason Aldean here, famous anthem about killing folks. I want to note this person here. We the people. This is a very offensive,
like a 50-year-old man.
Oh yeah, he's a grown adult.
It's a grown-ass man talking like this.
Anyways, these are the reports here. It won't just be chimps. It will probably be looking at jihadis, also running, other just nasty stuff. This is why the left needs to get their fentanyl Floyd worshippers out in the streets, the seeds of chaos. This would be a great time to round them up and send them home. And this is I don't even know what this is.
Jesus
this list
fucking
of
Christ.
like how many people. I mean, just really kind of bottom of the barrel Nazi stuff. And look, this is those are the people who are responding to that. So I don't know. Yeah, that's like a disgusting Nazi, but that's a disgusting Nazi who saw what the leader of the Tarrant County Republican Party was saying and said, like, yes, sir, I get exactly what you're saying. Let me help you make your point even firmer. So this is what
this is from CARE too, David. I just saw this looking at our buddy Beau French. CARE Texas demands removal of Tarrant County GOP chair over anti-Semitic Islamophobic poll. Doing a poll that's both at once. And if you could guess how you would do that, it would be
we're innovating here.
Pose a greater threat, Muslims or Jews.
Yeah.
What a fucking
just disgusting.
And then to back off. Some people say it's racist, but what about Elon? Bitch.
I mean,
this is
what this kind of politics has always been about: the smile and the wink. Oh, we're just messing around. How could you take me seriously? Well, it's because I do, and I think and people like you are in power, and they're working day and night to make sure that the kids starve, and the other ones away get bombed. And I don't know. My human values, my Texas values, tell me that that's a bad thing. And I think that we'll be better off when these people are far away from power and laughed at and ridiculed as the monsters and antisocial vagrants that they are.
I mean, remember Steve King? Steve King from Iowa?
Yeah.
He was just ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Like he is perfectly at home. There's no chance in hell he is forced to resign or like loses all of his shit from Republicans as far as like committee placements in this day and age. Like they're just all Steve Kings now. He's just too old.
Folks, this is just a reminder, as almost every day in this country has been for my whole life, but particularly the past few years, that we need to get very serious about winning power. And to do that, we need to get serious about politics. We need to get serious about building working class institutions that could take on these folks, because the fact that these are the people who are in power, just shows that the historic weakness of our movement. And this is the time to get very, very, very engaged and serious about a lot of the exciting movements that we're seeing to push back against this. Obviously, the big one being Zoran Mamdani. We'll have more on that soon. And some announcements on that front as well. But why don't we get to this conversation with Michael Burns? On the other side of that, Matt and I are going to come back. And then we're going to go to the post game. You get access to that post game at patreon.com/leftreckoning. It was really great having Michael back on the program. It was great that I was able to make this one. And we talked about the right wing, why these weird influencers are trying to make me read Marcus Aurelius, and much, much more. It was a lot of fun.
Enjoy, folks. Welcome to the show, Left Reckoners. I'm Matt Leck. With me is ever David Griscom. Hello, David.
Hey, friend. How's it going?
It's going really well. And joining us for the second time, Michael Burns. He's a philosophy YouTuber at Michael Burns channel on YouTube. People can go subscribe, along with the 170,000 other subscribers that like to broach these big ideas with Michael. Michael, thanks so much for being here again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real blessing to be here.
Well, let's start off with getting deep into the deep end of ideas here. I have a clip from Steven Crowder, and Steven Crowder is doing a voice that I've only heard him do a few times, including when Sam Cedar ambushed him on Ethan Klein's program. Funny how the past works. But a sort of breathy panic attack voice that you can tell Steven is really feeling anxiety when he's doing this. And this is because he has to play hall monitor on the right. With somebody who I assume was on his show before. This is Candace Owens, who has not been going in the direction of Charlie Kirk's death that Steven Crowder might want. And Steven has, well, let Steven sort of outline the issue here.
Because this is coming in live. Candace Owens outright saying, and I want to be careful with my words here because she's not. And I know she'll give herself an out and say that's not what I was implying. But you watch this clip in its entirety and it seems pretty blatant that she's saying, and people are interpreting it this way, which is also important, that the Trump administration, not whatever it was, we went from underground Jew tunnels, Mossad, the Trump administration killed Charlie Kirk.
Just really needed to just take a breather and really process everything that happened with Charlie and what it kind of means in terms of where we are. And I think it is a circumstance where we just know. We just know that he was truly betrayed in one of the most egregious ways that I think I've ever seen. It has made me lose faith in politics. It has made me fully lose faith in Trump. And my heart aches for the fact that he gave so much of his life to Trump and to politics. And they just were like,
Jesus
nope,
Christ.
That is it. He serves us or it doesn't serve us and we want to move on. And so here's a holiday. Bro, if they try to give me a holiday, what is with them giving people a holiday after they kill them? Why is that a thing? You know what I mean? Like, oh, Martin Luther King, what about this holiday? What about this boulevard? Anyways, let me knock out. Like, they're going to give Charlie Kirk a boulevard. They already did. They did in Israel. They gave him freaking boulevard. It's like, as soon as they give you a boulevard and a holiday, they definitely killed you. Okay, there's no question. They killed you. There's no way. That's like their signature thing. It's like, that's what they do. It's the Fed signature. It's how they sign off after they murder you. They're like holiday and a boulevard. And it's never on a nice side of town either. Like Charlie Kirk Boulevard is not going to be a nice side of town. Anyways, I will be back on the 27th, you guys. Thank you guys for all the support throughout these couple of weeks, these last really kind of 6.
Now, We'll maybe go back and get a little bit of Crowder's reaction here, but do you read that as Stephen did? I'm just asking your guys' response to this.
Well, it's hard because you know, Stephen told me what to expect, so I took the Trump thing into it. I don't know. It seems like she was being kind of conspiratorially vague to leave some room for interpretation. I think if you just showed that clip without other context, I might think she was aiming at that, but I might not think that she was implying that Donald Trump killed him.
I mean, she's kind of implying that everybody's in on it, though.
Yeah.
Right? And
That's the thing.
That's
way more fun.
Somebody did it, and it wasn't just the kid who, like Kash Patel
it was kind of everybody.
Right?
Well, you know, they did when it happened. I think one thing that's very important to remember that they were doing on the right is they kept on saying they did it. They did it. They killed Kirk. They killed Kirk. And they were doing that obviously to try to blame, you know, the left at large to justify all the attacks that they wanted to do on folks. But, you know, that's the problem when you start using kind of indescript language in a moment where you're accusing somebody of murder or killing folks. You know, there's a lot of collateral damage.
So in this like theory, then the idea is that was it that Tyler is the shooter, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the young Tyler was like paid off or sort of psychologically manipulated by members of the big establishment.
I don't know if it's so clear. I think there's like, you know, maybe he's a patsy because they were getting deep into the ballistic stuff, which to me is always when you're everyone's talking out of their ass, because even going back to like the JFK assassination stuff, there's so many people who speak authoritatively about what they think bullets do when they like interact with things in high velocities that I just think is like, you're guessing at a certain point. So that's what Crowder referenced when he said the hidden Jew tunnels, because there was this idea that the bullet came from a lower trajectory or something based on the images. Oh. But the key thing being, like J.D. Vance is still saying this. He responded to Mehdi Hassan talking about this whole thing about Zohran Mamdani saying there's Islamophobia that people that I'm related to have had to deal with post 9/11. J.D. Vance mentioned that they killed Charlie Kirk to Mehdi Hassan, who said, like, this is what Charlie Kirk kind of was fomenting with Islamophobia. So J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, is still suggesting that it was they in the left that killed Charlie Kirk. And it is fascinating to me that Candace Owens is so, I mean, frankly, I think like it's pretty heinous, because I don't think she has, I agree with Stephen Crowder, I don't like saying that the evidence here
everyone clip that.
The evidence here is exceedingly slim that there is some sort of wider conspiracy. But let's play a little bit more of Crowder here, because he sort of talks about the stakes that this has for the right wing in this moment.
Initial thoughts.
I love how pissed he is at the part of his audience that agrees with Candace, which is not insubstantial. You look at the comment section for this stuff, and Candace's numbers are crushing right now.
And I'm going to call it, going to weasel out. And I didn't say that, and I didn't imply that, and we're just asking questions. You need to do better. One final thing. People have talked about this. Is it true? Is it not? Is that actually the psyop where the left has wanted to drive a wedge between those on the right? Do you think that fracturing those on the right over a baseless conspiracy that the most effective president in modern American history killed one of the most effective public figures in modern American history, who's survived by his wife, who happens to be very close with a supportive president? I couldn't think of a more effective wedge issue. So either way, if it's stupidity or it's proactive evil, you must do better, sweetheart.
Question for the crew. What can we say to the people who listen to Candace and believe her? It feels like talking to a leftist at this point, and I'm not sure how we can break through.
It does.
I don't know. They're in chat. Good luck.
Some of them are. Yeah. Who's this guy? I don't know. Honestly,
he has an entourage of some of the most ghoulish, ugliest Slovenian men.
It is a revolving cast. That is important to say, because it's funny to say that, because I also haven't seen this guy. he replaced the other guy who used to be in that chair.
Oh, the real asshole, right?
Yeah, the real asshole, and he left because Crowder was a bigger asshole. And so,
God, yeah.
So yeah, but that's sort of Steven Crowder is right that there's and Dinesh D'Souza and Dave Rubin have also commented on this. And what Steven Crowder is upset about isn't that a baseless conspiracy is being created. He's mad that the baseless conspiracy isn't toward the left that allows the FBI to infiltrate and go after basically everyone because you blame Charlie Kirk's assassination on, like, I don't know, George Soros or something like that. Steven Crowder would have no problem and probably is in fact contributed to those sorts of theories. The one that he has is this Tucker and Candace thing, which is varying between implicating Trump himself or Israel, and I think it's pretty crazy to me to look at Candace Owens, because I genuinely think, like, in the wake of Kirk's assassination, a lot of people were saying she genuinely seems like the only person grieving him. But I'll say, like, that is out of date. Like, this is a weird way to grieve somebody, to be, like, sort of fanning flames of insane conspiracy theories about their death.
Candace, though, doesn't she understand that, like, her job and Crowder's job and all of them is not to spread baseless conspiracies about the president of the United States and Israel, but to do that about, I don't know, poor black kids who get murdered by the police or trans people? I mean, what it is yeah, it is funny to see. It's just like the playbook that they've been doing, that they've made their careers on, now just getting so absurd and kind of like, I don't know, detached from reality. It is now just like gobbling up their own side.
Well, it feels very, and I'm not as familiar with these people. Unlike Matt, I don't agree with Steven Crowder, but it has a certain theatricality to it, like a kayfabe energy, where I do wonder, and maybe this is me being conspiracy guy, like, are they just all, is there some secret back channel text thread where it's like, who's the heel this month? Who's going to push things forward this way? Because it all benefits them in terms of numbers and finances. And I know Candace Owens, she's one of, like, the failed theater kids of the right. Isn't that the case? I know there's, like, a big connection between a lot of these people who were, like, failed at theater or acting.
She definitely had an agent at some point in her life.
She had a casting. She had a casting, Hollywood casting profile that you can find online.
I love it. I mean, but this is what it feels like, someone playing a role inside, like, a poorly made late 90s political thriller where they're going to get to the bottom of it or something. Just kind of reeks of that energy. I don't know where the end game would be with her for this, though, but it seems like maybe no one will care.
That's the thing, is I think what's happening, and Alex Perrine had a good piece on this, I think for Splinter in like 8 years ago or something, but which is like the huckster entrepreneurs have sort of caught up with the party apparatchiks. So like Crowder and Ben Shapiro, they want Republicans to win. That's like, and they know that they can, that's what their business model is. Like, we help Republicans. We get a lot of these guys giving us scoops, a lot of them appearing on the show. As they rise, we rise. There's a whole nother class. I also think Tucker Carlson's become this sort of person where they're actually not loyal to the party. Because that actually, like, causes a lot of problems when that party's in power, and you have to own sort of what they are doing. It's much easier to be in sort of this permanent opposition mode and sort of capture that audience. So and I mean, and also I think kind of the negative view of that is there's no left to really capture all this stuff. It's so depressing to me when Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens get credit for people for saying the mildest criticism of Israel, or if it's not mild, it's like Christian coded. So it's like, we care about the Palestinians, but because we found out last week there are Christians there getting bombed among the Muslims. But I was telling David before this really, I actually, let me play this. This is another sort of thing Candace Owens has been on. This reminds me of what Alex Jones used to do and what Alex Jones accused David Icke of doing, which is being a turd in the punch bowl of these actual, like, conspiracy investigations. So here, and I would assume, Michael, I don't want to speak for you, but I know David, you're not a big fan of Peter Thiel. right? And these Sam Altman type of guys. Michael, you can let us know after we play this clip. We'll be in suspense there. But here is Candace Owens talking about these guys in a way that, like, I don't know if it's entirely helpful. I don't know if it really coheres with, say, the analysis that we might make about tech capitalists.
I'm telling you, I don't even think these people are human. Like, I look at Elon Musk and Sam Altman and Peter Thiel, and I'm pretty sure they're hybrid. You know what I mean? Like, they just look like an Apple software that I should be able to download at night, you know? Like, my phone's getting an update or something. It's something in the eyes. Like, I don't know. I'm like, I know I'm human, but I don't know if I stabbed you if you bleed, you know?
So yeah, that's a little bit of schizo stuff from Candace there.
You know, I mean, I think that this is one of these things that we've been watching over the past few years with the right, is that the best time for these folks, and when a lot of these people were able to get a lot of like attention and influence, is like as when Biden's president, right? It's very, very easy for them to go on, and then there's like a lot of unity there. I mean, you see this, you know, amongst like, you know, the left as well, right? It's sometimes easier to be out of power, at least in the sense of like being able to have like, oh yeah, you know, our disagreements aren't that big with this group or that group. But what was really interesting was like when it looked like Trump was kind of dissipating as a political force, when people were kind of counting him out after those Biden midterms in 2022, seeing how a lot of these people reacted, like, so like Crowder and a lot of these other folks, they started, you know, swimming in the swamp with Ron DeSanctimonious in Florida, getting really into that kind of thing. And if I remember correctly, I mean, I'm sure she probably covered him a little bit, but I don't think Candace Owens was like deep in that with the rest of them, where I think she made but they all made the pivot because they were worried, hey, this Republican Party stuff that we've been doing for a little while might not work if we attach ourselves to Trump. It looks like he might lose. So we'll start going with this new right or whatever. And Candace, I think, just sort of like, hey, I have a really crazy audience, so I better like keep leaning into that. And what we're seeing is two different groups kind of diverging pretty clearly here. But I don't know. I think you have a better sense of these things than I do, Matt.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I'm trying to remember Candace Owens' history of that sort of stuff. But you're right. Like, and it's interesting. Like, I mean, maybe we haven't said this before, but this is all because of Israel and how unpopular the imperative for the Republicans to support Israel is on the right now. You know, obviously we know what the polling is on the Democratic side of things, but probably even greater percentage-wise shift is with young Republicans, and that's really what's caused the split here. Is Candace and Tucker have made an affirmative decision that it's not in our future best interests to be co-signing what's going on with Israel as like the supposedly America first people, whereas people like Crowder and Shapiro are deciding America first means Israel first as well because of scary Muslims, essentially.
Yeah. Well, seeing that clip you just showed, and of course, shout out to my Silicon Valley boys. But the way she was talking makes me think of yesterday or the day before, there was a news story where Sam Altman was talking about how like 70% of ChatGPT users are experiencing some sense of psychosis or something, like just normal stuff, very normal stuff. That an app that now has commercials that shows sweet kids in the college library, and ChatGPT makes them a plan to study for class. So there's one where a brother and sister go on a road trip, and the brother says, ChatGPT, plan a road trip for me and my sister. And it makes them a playlist. I know this is a digression, but the same app that does that is driving people like fucking crazy and like leading some people to try to, you know, kill themselves or in some cases do it. And it seems like Candace Owens is a person who's been completely brain fried by constant interaction and negotiation with her audience and with that subset of the internet, so that's how her brain works now. So, I mean, she's not wrong in that. I would like to see what happened if someone stabbed those guys. I don't want to do it. I don't think any of your listeners should do it. But she's not wrong in their levels of ghoulishness, but she also sounds like someone whose psyche is the product of the world that those fine men have created.
No, I think that's definitely like on point, and in a lot of ways, I think I don't know, like with Candace Owens, you know, the question is always whether or not she's genuine. Mm-hmm. But I think that you can be genuine and also be a kind of like a product of like cynical business moves, right? I think that you can decide to kind of lean into things, and you say things enough times, you do just start to believe them. It becomes how your brain reacts to a situation. If you decided to get into it for impure reasons, then the quest for truth, doesn't really affect what that's going to do to your psychology. And and also, I mean, somebody with a platform like that who also has to kind of be on regularly like that. I don't think that it probably does good things for your kind of sense of self, or ability to kind of parse through information. What's up, Matt?
You were right about Candace and DeSantis. Here's a headline from 2023.
Of course I am.
Candace Owens slams Ron DeSantis inappropriate world travel. So if you're making those sorts of critiques, they're like, you're interested in one way or the other, because that seems pretty minor to me.
But I do think that, like, Crowder is definitely right in the sense of, this is going to create more crisis. And I mean, I hope so. I mean, I think that one of the best things about Trump being in power right now and having to try to own the situation has been this kind of fracturing of, I don't like the word independent media, but it's just like the kind of placeholder for it, because it's not independent. Everybody knows this at this point. But that kind of like alternative media scene, like now those guys all have to like have opinions on like actual events in the world. And you can't, unless you all have the exact same opinion, you can't really differentiate yourself. So it creates this kind of conflict, which I think is pretty damn good versus what it was like, I don't know, like a year ago, when a lot of people seem to be vibing and getting the same kind of message from all kinds of like independent media podcast stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you've even seen that with some of the comedy adjacent podcast dudes that were on the Trump feed for a while, who are now having to back away a little bit because of that contradiction within that media sphere and the way in which like their audience is starting to roll their eyes at it a little bit.
I'm fascinated by that. The I don't know if people might have seen. There's this guy, Too Lazy to Try, on YouTube that does a lot of these.
Those I like that guy's videos.
Yeah, he does like sort of comedian drama stuff, and he has one recently on Andrew Santino versus Andrew Schultz. Schultz trying to get Joe Rogan to kick Santino out of the mothership sort of family because he had Mark Maron on to talk about the Maron's whole thing. And
which one is Santino?
Santino's the red-haired guy that does the show with Bobby Lee.
Oh, funny.
And he sort of like coaxed Maron into like taking shots at Rogan, and Schultz is like, if I was Rogan, I would be insulted by what Andrew Schultz said. Because Andrew Schultz is like, look, Santino, he said this to Rogan, there's going to come a point where you get canceled for some shit and you're going to want to come on Rogan to launder your career. And if I'm and he didn't put it like that, but that's basically what he said.
No, it basically is what he said.
It's the cleanup crew, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, if I'm Joe Rogan, like, is that really what I want to be known for? Especially because there's this guy, I need to ask Brian, but there's this guy who's been kicked out of, who's banned from Fox News and the mothership for harassing women all the time. And he's now going on podcasts saying the mothership has been taken over by woke people who don't let men be men.
Yeah.
Sick.
Hell yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, then, I mean, we bring up Rogan and, it's also like the money, like Schultz and all those guys are just having to follow this guy around. Michael, I mean, this is kind of a big topic here, but I wanted to ask you, we've seen the right in our lifetime, and especially in the past 5 years. I don't know. It's always been cruel. It's always shown itself to be cruel, but I think really devolve into a kind of like ideological mess. Is this just something about, it's really the money just calling the shots, and there's different forces who need different things? Is there like any kind of like intellectual strain that we can kind of grab onto to look at like the modern Republican Party? Because I mean, I think there's subcurrents, but even the ones that like I know here in Texas, like I've lived under conservative Republican rule my whole life, and seeing how different Greg Abbott is today versus when he had held other positions in the state of Texas, or even just, before this most recent Trump election. It has been kind of amazing to see how quickly that went away for just power, right? So like, I'm curious your kind of thoughts as somebody who's seeing what's going on in the world, about this kind of state of the right, the mind on the right.
Yeah, I mean, as a longtime member of various right-wing coalitions and militias, this is something I've lived. I mean, a couple things. I do think a lot of it is boringly economic or material, in that the more crass the system gets, we see that crassness reflected in the bad guys of that era. I've recently thought a lot about Bill Gates, not a good guy. Let me just say that now, not a good guy, but how the Bill Gates era of billionaire tech guy stuff is like, you do all the evil shit, but then you're like, but yeah, we'll like give these kids some AIDS medicine and we'll give some computers to these kids over here. You do like these little things that seem to acknowledge the underlying, and I think it's, they can masquerade it as humanism, but it's the underlying economic necessity to keep some level of a workforce and a consumer force around, where all the new bad guys are like, let everyone die. They don't give a shit. There's a crassness there. But it's weird because the other influence that I see a lot in a bunch of this is like right-wing evangelicalism and Christian nationalism, and the way that that's come to the forefront of politics. And I think that's given things their like cultish sort of tone, because things do feel slightly culty, or not that like George Bush was like a cool guy or anything like that, but there's just this culty kind of theocratic shift that's been happening, and it feels to me like maybe not the last stage, because it's probably going to get worse, but one of the final stages of the synthesis of like the American evangelical mindset with the conservative political mindset that gives you like spiritual white Jesus force as the wind beneath your wings.
But, you know, I wonder, because one of the things I think has been successful for the right in this country has been their kind of absorption of the evangelical movement in this country, right? Because that wasn't always the case, right? And it was kind of a way to, I don't know, attach that to like a kind of boring, waspy pro-business politics. That's kind of starting to dissipate a little bit now. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, you know, this was something that I think we saw in this like most recent CUOMO election, right? Where, you know, you have this massive de-alignment, not just traditional Democrat working class voters moving away from the Democratic Party, but also the kind of like credit card executive people who you might traditionally think are Republicans, like a lot of that class starting to vote Democrat, right? You know, so you know, I am curious, like, you know, can that kind of monster of, I don't know, just blatant racism and evangelical politics and holding on to power for power's sake, like exist without the money power so attached to it?
Oh, it feels like the money power like legitimizes it more and more. And it feels like as long as those economic and material antagonisms are creating the conditions to need either like the scapegoat or the sort of pseudo-theological hope to look towards, that will be there. It seems like once you alleviate some of those things, you're in a position where like you either have to acknowledge reality as it is, or just be like, oh, I just am like racist. Like I just am like, give me universal basic income, give me healthcare, do whatever. And I still just don't like them. And I think that to me, it feels like kind of like the moment that we're in, but it's interesting as well when you describe the credit card types going left, because they still need enough people to have enough money to go into debt with them.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I do wonder is the new right like kind of bad at capitalism by a certain extent?
I mean, are capitalists even good at capitalism? Like I've been thinking about, you know, people say late stage capitalism. I think we're in like a failure stage of capitalism where it can't actually, the idea that it can meet the needs of a society is a joke.
Nobody believes that. Like nobody believes
that. And not only that, but there's also a counter example in China who is not only like doing high-speed rail everywhere, they're also exporting cars to the entire world, destroying us in it now. And this has happened very fast, and I don't think the conversation has caught up to it yet, but I do think that's why there's so much aimlessness. Like I saw Sean McCarthy tweet something out that China's celebrating like sanitation workers today. I don't know if it's true. Maybe it's a lie that was put us on the internet, but I do think there's something to the point where we look and we tell younger people, specifically young men, that the point of life is to be some sort of drop shipper or crypto scammer and get easy money for nothing and spend it in your community, and not like finding a job that is necessary for society to run and feeling proud of like contributing to it. Like that's sort of the fundamental contrast of, I feel like, this century.
I will say, just in a quick addition to your discussion of how late capitalism seems like an insufficient moniker for what's happening. The writer and theorist Anna Kornbluh has coined the term "too late capitalism," and I think her description. I reread her book recently for something I was working on, and I'm even more convinced that that's a very helpful way to think about what's happening right now.
Cornblue, I believe we had on talking about Jameson.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we should get her back. That's fascinating. But yeah, like late stage capitalism, that was for the 90s. We're in a new sort
That's
of
kind
thing
of a
now.
hopeful phrase,
Yes.
too, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Michael, before we let you go, I do just have one quick question for you. And as somebody who did philosophy for my undergrad, but kind of spent most of my adult life, doing history, and reading stuff like that. I've kind of fallen off, and I was thinking maybe I should get back into philosophy. And I've been getting a lot of ads that the number one thing I need to do to be successful is start reading the Stoics. Why is there this kind of hustle and grind culture around the Stoics? Are there people that people should be reading? Is this a philosophy worthwhile? Is it a philosophy that's being bastardized? What's going on with this?
Okay, I'm not the biggest ancient philosophy guy, so I don't want to make anyone mad. I'm sure a big chunk of your listeners and viewers are professors of ancient philosophy. I bet at least one is. Whoever that person is, comment, email, whatever. There is good stuff there. I know Marcus Aurelius is one of the guys that it's all the fellas get really into.
We love it.
But I think that the reason those people like it is because it gives them a sort of ancient intellectual justification for doing the same stuff they would do anyways, and provides a kind of fully individualistic, non-metaphysical worldview where self-betterment at the individual level is a virtue in and of itself. And when you compare that, and you study philosophy, you guys know this, compare that to someone like an Aristotelian take on virtue, where it always is going to involve the other. It's always going to involve thinking about politics. It's always going to involve how we think about education and community. Stoicism is it latches on really well, I think, to the self-empowerment via exercise and gym mindset. And to be clear, I'm not hating on people who are healthy. I wish I was more healthy. But it just meshes so well with all of that.
Well, do you think it's fair then to say, because these are different traditions, very different traditions actually, but in the same way that there's always been this kind of angsty teen, like Nietzsche, a guy, is this a kind of similar appeal then?
No, I think that's really well put. Yeah. Because both of those end up leading to people doing the same thing or being obsessed with self-mastery. Just one of them looks really gaunt and one of them does ultra marathons or something. But I think there's a similar tendency. And I think there's something about the immediacy of a good Aurelius line or a Nietzsche paragraph that sucks you into a world, and then there's a digital community around that thing and people to look to. So I think there's something very similar there. But it is interesting that even the main Stoicism guy now is too woke. Ryan Holiday, he's an Austin guy, he's written a bunch of books on this stuff, and he got uninvited from, I think it was the Naval Academy, the military, one of the colleges where you go to if you're going to be in the military. I think it was the Navy one. Is that the one in Maryland?
Yeah, in Annapolis.
Yeah, but he was too woke because he reads books, I think. There's a truth to what I'm saying. I might not be getting every detail here right.
Yeah.
But that was and he had to make a video that was this is what I would have said at the Naval Academy. And I watched it. It was so chill. It was just he was just be a good person, work hard, blah, 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 blah. And they were just no, you read books, you're done.
That's some good ancient wisdom is be nice to people. I don't know.
No, I think that part is fine. Just the ability of all of that to synthesize with hustle culture, grind set, money stuff is a problem. And I even think a lot of the Stoic logic itself pushes one to inquire about the ultimate ends of their activity, which we get in so much, ancient philosophy, the teleology question. And I don't know, I'm not hella up on all these guys because I'm busy lifting, but snacks when I'm eating them. But I think that what they're missing is that level of things, the interrogation of the why for the thing. And instead of that, they're metaphysically naturalizing our economy and job ecosystem and assuming that that's a natural place to focus that energy.
I think it was really worrying about a lot of the stuff that I see. You know, I will admit I haven't signed up for the courses, but I sometimes will click around and see what they're saying. It oftentimes seems to be even worse than just like, hey, you know, spend your time kind of reading this without any kind of guide or context. It's actually just like, hey, I've picked out these very specific lines from this, and I'm going to teach you a lesson. And that lesson is, you know, why basically like being a good hustle and grind guy, and also being a consumer to a large extent as well, is the good. And I think that that's a really dangerous thing. And you see that with a lot of scams too, right? This is the same thing with like a lot of kind of like hippy dippy natural food medicine crap that they push on people. It's like, oh, here's a study, but I'm not going to give you actually any of the information, and, you know, heavily imply that it means this or that.
Well, I think to do that with philosophy
is dangerous too.
Yeah. No, but it's like and I say this realizing I'm going to border on sounding like I'm being elitist, and I don't want to be elitist, but this skepticism of expertise means that like a person who's maybe just a really well-intentioned guy who read some Marcus Aurelius or whatever and was like, oh, this made my life better, I'm going to write about it. That's like a cool thing in and of itself. There's worse things you can do in life. But if you were going to write about those texts at a more professional level, you would like be studying ancient languages. You would have to understand the, you know, literary, political, of all this sort of stuff. The same way with a lot of the health stuff, and why a lot of kooky, formerly lefty health influencers are now right wing. It's like, you know, when you establish such a mistrust for establishments, and there are reasons to have skepticism towards those institutions, it's just so easy to fly over to that space. And I don't know like what the answer to that is, because the answer shouldn't be that like you have to be in tons of debt and go to too much school to know stuff. We got to find some middle ground there.
I think we got to find a way for people to maybe do that kind of reading, like together, maybe as a part of a political party or a political organization. I think that might be the answer. I think versus this kind of isolated thing, because that's in my life, that's always been something that's been very beneficial.
Yeah.
And how much of a joke is it that you could dehistoricize and decontextualize these sorts of things and expect to pull some sort of like permanent truth out of it? That's why I've always liked Marx, because I remember like Sam Harris being on his meditation jag like in 2012, and my relationship to meditation was just entirely illuminated to me by the fact that when I first started meditating, I had like $15,000 in the bank from student loan money. I was doing fairly well, felt comfortable. And then I remember trying to meditate when I was unemployed, and that was dwindling like crazy. And meditation didn't hit the same way when I would think of money flying out the
just like a cold plunge is nice when you got a big ass house.
Exactly. Like
when the heat's not on, it's not as much fun.
Yeah, like sitting around, like thinking of your breathing, as well as like, oh, I'm accruing interest on all of my large accounts. That hits different than, oh shit, rent is in 3 days, but maybe I try to get this meditation in or something like that. Is there anything else you wanted to say on that, Michael?
Oh, I'm good. I'm here to listen and be in community with other people and learn via dialogue and interaction, as we all should be.
Well, so the community is, I want to bring us back to the right, just for one final thing, because I did find the community is tough to keep together, because you think you have all of these, you know, comedy assassins coming to the mothership and, you know, fighting the good fight for truth and laughs. And then something happens where the honeymoon gets over. And this is a comedian named Tyler Fisher on with a Canadian loser named David Freiheit, or Viva Fry. And here he is talking about Joe Rogan's, this is from Too Lazy to Try, comedian exposes Joe Rogan's woke comedy club.
Mothership. Did you go to Rogan's place?
Let me slow this down here a little bit.
Please do it on human speed.
I would believe they talked like that.
I was banned.
Mothership. Did you go to Rogan's place every now and again?
I was banned. Yeah, they banned me from the. I'm kicked out of that club. There's it's the woke mind virus. There's no other way to say it. Not only banned, a cease and desist order. Sure, Rogan can open a club. It's great. It was a matter of time. Wokeism has seeped into the club. The manager of the club, this is the key point. The manager is a far leftist. He has punished other comedians. He gives people timeouts. He banned a comedian for 3 months for a joke
Now, Tyler is changed the subject away from him onto other things he is observing about the mothership. I would just point out this headline from Variety, I believe it was.
Also, that guy looks like someone I've seen at every DSA meeting I've ever been to, in fairness. When I first saw him, I was like, he's been on the show. I know I've seen him before.
I hope not.
This is he almost had a breakout role that got messed up, I think, because
The woke mind virus?
well, the woke mind virus, but I mean, it's pretty prevalent. It's not only at the mothership, it's apparently at Fox News' Gutfeld, because this Daily News headline, Fox News regular Tyler Fisher says he's banned after asking staffer out. Now, I think he might be underplaying what happened there, but this is a guy who has been kicked off of Fox News and the mothership, and is now accusing both of them of being infiltrated by woke people because he can't go and like grab women's asses or something in the lobby. So
what's the point of becoming a comedian if you can't just play grab ass at Fox News? You know, that's the dream of Carlin and all the forefathers, I think.
How dare that manager tell me that I'm making women uncomfortable in the lobby of the mothership? That is wokeism.
That's terrible. Well, before, because we're going to have to shut this down before we get into more trouble with Rogan and our bosses. But I want to ask you one thing, just because we did kind of like come at some stuff. We came at the Stoics really quick. Anything that comes to mind. But I'm somebody listening to this and I'm like, hey, I want to start reading some more philosophy again. I feel a little sad. Maybe it'd be even more ideal if it's something not explicitly political, because I think our audience reads a little bit too much of that stuff. If I want to fill my head with some big thoughts and maybe get some direction, what would be something maybe to pick up or look into?
Oh gosh. Well, I always think if you want to be like real straightforward here, there's a collection, and it's called like 5 dialogues, and it's 5 of the early Socratic dialogues with Plato. I know it sounds sexy, kids, but it's a pretty good vibe. It's just like Greek dudes talking about stuff. And in those dialogues, again, it's like just called 5 dialogues. You might find a used copy for like $2 online, or download it, or whatever people do. I think that's always a really great place to start if you just want to like dive in that way. I think if you want something more contemporary, I don't know, it's a little played out and it does get into politics, but I do think Byung-Chul Han offers a nice on-ramp to some contemporary thinking. I think it's a nice potential starting point, especially like the Burnout book, because it's so immediate and relatable. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just say one more real quick. It's a little bit more of a tough ride, but I think Anna Kornbla's immediacy is so good. And read it slowly, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. It's a little political, but not. It's more about
we could deal with a little politics.
But that's the book. If you're like a person who spends way too much time on the internet, that's the book I've read in the last year where I've just been like, oh god, yep, this is it. She gets it. Especially the stuff on. I mean, she literally like has like a theory of streaming video and digital video and how it's affecting the way we think and comprehend reality. So those are some thoughts. And then finally, I'll say Kierkegaard's The Present Age. It's a short essay by Soren Kierkegaard. It's my favorite thing ever. It's not political because he's just a Danish Protestant incel, but it's very good and it's very short. I love short books.
Well, beautiful. Well, Michael, how can people keep up with you and your work? Where can they watch you?
I'm on YouTube. Just Michael Burns is the channel, and then I stream and I post stream clips on my Sideburns channel because I'm really good at naming things. But I think if you type in Michael Burns in YouTube, it's either it goes between me being first or an Office clip from when Michael burns his foot in the George Foreman oven. The past however many years of my life have been me trying to get ahead of that Office clip that Michael burns his foot.
All right, so y'all go and watch and share widely so we can achieve this great dream to finally beat that. Man.
And don't click the Office clip either.
Yeah.
I mean, shout out Steve Carell. Like, no disrespect at all.
Well, thank you so much, man. It was really great talking to you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You go and do it, and do not, whatever you do not watch that Office clip. It is disgusting. Matt, that was a lot of fun having Michael on the program.
Yeah, it was. It's nice to get a little bit heady.
If we get a little
Even though
heavy.
actually, I don't know. I mean, I guess with the Stoics, we did a little bit at the end there.
I'll tell you, I think Candace Owens is getting even more heady. If you have seen, she put out a very interesting long video about vibes and energy and thoughts and how they affect reality and how that relates to Charlie Kirk. So things are going very well over there.
There's some folks, I think, that, you know, there's not a whole lot of people standing up for like Palestinians in this moment. So there's certain folks who I think want to make more of what Candace Owens is doing than it is. It'd be nice if she apologized for calling like squad members anti-Semitic for like years, until all of a sudden finding out that that has like no bearing on reality. It'd be nice if there was any kind of like accountability like that stuff, instead of just commodifying things like that. Same with Tucker Carlson. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, and also just a note on Tyler Fisher. He didn't grab anyone's ass. He grabbed a woman's phone, put his number in it, and then accosted her to make sure that she had saved the number. So,
oh, that's super cool. Well, folks, in a minute, we're going to go over to the post game, patreon.com/Left Reckoning, where Matt and I are going to talk a good bit more about Plattner and also Dan Osborne, somebody who we have been very interested in a while, along with your questions and much, much more. But before we do that, I mean, we have to talk a little bit about Zoran. We'll have some announcements regarding our coverage there on Tuesday, some exciting things happening on that front. But you know, I think most people are up to date with what's going on. It is an absolutely critical election. If you are in New York City, go out and make sure that you vote. Make sure that you get your neighbor to and your friends to. You got to make sure that the weirdos don't benefit from the confidence, the rightful confidence that people have about Zoran Mamdani and this movement. But look, it's something that has been tremendously inspiring when we talk about you know, the conversations that we're having, you know, here in Texas and all across the country about Zoran. It's something that's gone beyond just New York City. Hell, I was in Mexico recently, and, you know, that was something that I was talking to many folks and comrades about. There are some people who aren't too happy about it, namely Andrew Cuomo. You know, it must suck to be kind of nationally, internationally hated. But luckily for him, there are some young folks who are showing up to support him. I don't know if you've seen this yet, Matt, but this was put out recently by the Andrew Cuomo campaign.
is this Cool Girls for Cuomo?
This is young people for Cuomo. Close.
Oh.
And by the way, this is not AI like every other Andrew Cuomo ad seems to be. Probably, you know, very telling thing when a campaign has to rely on, I don't know, computer fantasies. But this is the young people for Cuomo, and there's a little bit of a theme here about what kind of people are interested in him.
I'm here at Maxwell Social House with hundreds of young professionals in support of Cuomo. Democrat, Republicans, it doesn't matter. We need to say.
Beautiful start here, by the way.
Wow.
That doesn't matter. All right, let's see why.
New York City. Let's go around and ask people why they're in support of Cuomo. As a young professional, why should people vote for Cuomo?
I've seen the way these radical leftists have destroyed San Francisco, Chicago. You could be a kind-hearted liberal and want good public schools and not want total destruction.
Because Cuomo cares about protecting Jewish New Yorkers.
As a born Republican, I have options, and I realize that as a New Yorker, I don't want this city to slip to the left, to run radical. I know that if I vote Sliwa, it's a vote for Mamdani.
While Zoran Mamdani promises free buses, free childcare, it sounds great in theory. In practicality, the world doesn't work that way. Governor Cuomo understands that, and that's why he'd be my person to vote for.
Because Mamdani throws around a lot of buzzwords, things he can't.
Sorry, I love the world doesn't work that way as a campaign message.
Cuomo, the world does not work that way. Yeah,
that's nice, but the world doesn't work that way.
Theory. In practicality, the world doesn't work that way. Governor Cuomo understands that, and that's why he'd be my person to vote for.
because Mamdani throws around a lot of buzzwords, things he can't promise, and at the end of the day, Cuomo has a track record that he can actually prove.
I was born in the city. I love the city. Andrew Cuomo is going to help protect the values that make New York great.
I'm a Republican who loves the city of New York, and I don't want to see it go the wrong way.
Nothing is free. You can succeed as long as you do the hard work. And that's what Cuomo brings to the table. Free stuff without a legitimate plan is not going to save New York and make your life better. No slogans, all plans. That's Andrew Cuomo, period.
We're young adults for Cuomo because we love this city.
I like that we've dropped the young people, by the way.
What did he say?
We're young adults.
You're an adult for Cuomo. Come on, bro.
We were born and raised here. We believe in business. We believe in growth. And we're not ready to let New York City be taken over by socialism, which has never worked anywhere.
Election day is November.
There you go. That was the Republicans for. Oh no, sorry, that was the young people for for Andrew Cuomo there. So
The young adults. When do you stop being a young adult?
I don't know. I mean, I always thought like young adult fiction is like Twilight and shit. So, like, is it a young?
22?
Yeah, young adult is like a teen, right? Is
Yeah,
it-
that's how you like delineate like kind of still a teen
Matt,
adult.
there's some developmental things going on. Like, if you're,
I
they
know,
might as
some
well
of
be
those
saying.
were unfortunate.
Well, no, I'm not even saying that. I'm saying like,
Okay.
but you start using terms like young adult here. I mean, that's like kind of saying like young grown up. You know
It's
what I
funny,
mean? It's
like-
just like it betrays a kind of immaturity.
The New York Times had a story about Zoran's sort of brain trust, and it was sort of taking shots at how young they were. It's like, look at these young people in charge of Zoran's campaign. There was like 36-year-olds, and I'm like, fuck yeah, still young, baby.
You still got a
You're
few
welcome.
more years. You'll be
I mean,
you'll be a grown.
I'm an adult though. I don't call myself a young adult, man.
Yeah.
Like I stopped doing that at like maybe there was a little bit of denial. Age 30, I'm like, I'm still a young adult. Like by the time 32 rolls around, you're an adult, man. Come on.
All right, one more before we go, because all I'm saying is like, again, don't take anything for granted. Go out, show up, participate here. But the crash out that we're going to experience is going to be something else. And my senator, Ted Cruz, has been busy trying to make sure that children do not have food in their fridge. But he took a little bit of time out of his busy schedule here to share some thoughts that he has about what's coming for the Democratic Party. Sorry, I love this screenshot already. All right.
This is a full takeover. I think Bill Maher is right. What are your thoughts?
Look, I think the Democrat Party has lost their minds. I got to say, I was amused listening to AOC say, we're not crazy, we're sane. It reminded me of an old friend of mine who talked about what she called bimbo eruptions, which is whenever anyone says, I am not a bimbo, what does everyone think? You're a bimbo. When Richard Nixon said, I am not a crook, all of
I'm sorry. What do you mean when everyone says I'm not a bimbo?
I know.
Like, who's saying that?
I mean, he's been hanging out with all of these, young people for Cuomo, Matt.
I'm not.
Well,
a bimbo.
I want. There is a theme here. There's a couple things we're gonna get to Mamdani and all that in a second. He's gonna start with AOC here, and I just want to know, like, the first thing he's talking about is bimbo, and then he says something about women that is so. Forgive me for the slang, but so cringe. Like, really, it's like the kind of thing when you hear a guy say this, like, unironically, he was the creep, at the college parties. But anyways, let's. So we're already talking about bimbos, right? What his good friend was always telling him about bimbos, and let's see what he says next.
America said, you know what? He's a crook. In this instance, when AOC stands up and says, we are not crazy, the rest of America says, you're crazy. And methinks she doth protest too much. You look at
total creep line. Sorry, total creep line. And I don't know, a man with such a lack of spine that he now works and worships for a man who called his wife a dog. It's not that surprising, the kind of just general creep and low opinion of women that this guy has.
Look, I don't want to bash anybody in case they think they like this movie, but Ted Cruz's favorite movie is The Princess Bride.
What's wrong with that? All right, yeah.
I just think like he's so fucking theatrical, man.
He is
like
theatrical.
Methinks she doth protest too much. That's like a human. That's like the fedora, like neckbeard guy in
it's a
language.
milady. Yeah, totally. But it's also, but let's just not forget the subject matter. He's saying like, "Hey, why are you reacting negatively to what I'm saying here?" Anyway, let's go on a little bit because we'll get into the good stuff about what's coming for New York. That actually I'm pretty excited for.
Comrade Mamdani, and that's how I call him, is Comrade Mamdani. It is amazing to see New Yorkers vote for someone who is an open communist. He's not a socialist. He's a communist. He's talking about government seizing the means of production. He's talking about massive tax increases and putting the government in charge of the economy. And he is a jihadist. This is someone who went and did a photo op with an unindicted co-conspirator of the World Trade Center bombing. This is someone who...
Yeah, that's all bullshit. Hysterical Zionist bullshit. What means of production is Zoran talking about seizing, David?
The buses. I would love.
We're going to start making buses in the city. Like,
I mean, I know it is something else. But I mean, look, they are completely incapable at this point of arguing against him, right? Like they. This is something that it's very clear that like he's going to win. It's very clear, by the way, that he's like internationally popular now as a politician. You know, so the only thing that they can do is kind of sit on the sidelines and bitch and moan, which is exactly the kind of position that I would like to see somebody like Ted Cruz be relegated to permanently.
Yeah, it's been glorious to watch Cuomo deal with. It just like
that's tough, dude.
The aimlessness. Like, look, why didn't you win the primary? Because the money didn't translate into votes enough. Like, that's why. That's the only reason. It's not. And then
the party was like the corrupt party was not strong enough. Like, too, right?
Right.
Like they couldn't give me the gimme. I fumbled the bag.
And it is crazy to look back at like the early weeks of his announcement and all of the people that like, especially the professional like identity groups that were like taking photo ops in high rises next to Cuomo as he announced it. I mean, a lot of those people have already bent the knee to Zoran now since the primary victory. But it was crazy to see that these whole structures of supposedly the leaders of a community, but really just like sort of the closest to the money funnel, just show out for a guy who's a pervert. He's a fucking handsy freak with horrible politics. Politics that again.
The world doesn't work that way.
the world, how the world works. Let's actually talk about how the world works when Andrew Cuomo is governor of a blue state. Democrats, listen here. So we have this blue state of ours where Republicans play less of a role in the state legislature than some people might like, including Governor Andrew Cuomo. So what he decided to do is fashion out of whole cloth something called the Independent Democrat Caucus. Basically making Republicans out of thin air, Democrats that would caucus with Republicans to block any sort of progressive legislation. That was fucking him.
Yeah,
that was him. And the only reason that it got dislodged is because Cynthia Nixon made it a campaign issue when she ran smartly and really raised the salience of that. So people are like, wait, why the fuck aren't we doing things like passing marijuana legalization in this state? Well, that's why. It's because of people like him. That's how the world works.
Well, I mean, you know, this is one of the things for, you know, friends of capital is that they can never like, this is what we're seeing with like the Republican Party right now, where like they're like, oh my God, what if we can't, we wish we could save SNAP, but we wish we could, but the Democrats are stopping it. Like they're like having to create you know, this situation the same way that like Biden was like, oh my God, you know, the parliamentarian, we could never deal with this. Or Cuomo's position is like, the party that I represent is like so powerful that like, you know, they and the things that they've been advocating for years, like we could actually do what if we created secret Republicans? Yeah, I mean, it really is just such a like fundamental indication about like how you can't just wait for these kind of ruling class politicians, be they Republican or Democrat, to ever actually deliver, right? Because when you serve capital, that's the only master that you're going to serve, and you will create excuses or situations to be able to maintain the status quo. Even if it makes you unpopular. Yeah.
Yeah, you got folks look up the clip where he's asked about his lack of likability, and he's like, "It's because I'm big and Italian."
It's it's so good. Both him and his brother are still on that shit. Well, folks, we're not done. We're not even close to done. We got a hell of a lot more coming up. That is at the post game. You get that at patreon.com/leftreckoning. Why don't you come over and join us? We got a lot of fun stuff going on. We're going to talk a little bit more about Graham Plattner, Dan Osborne. I know Matt's got some good stuff for us. And of course,
about Halo.
Halo.
Halo and ICE and the connection about those two, apparently.
I don't like that. Well, folks, you're going to want to join us over there. Patreon.com/leftreckoning. Come and hang out. It's all live right now. So people on the free stream, people on the Twitch, the lights are going to go out. But we're staying alive and lively for all of our good friends who support this program. Don't forget to show up and vote if you're in New York for Zoran, of course. And here in Texas, we got boring election, but important one with all these constitutional amendments. So make sure you show up because they are trying to do stuff to basically fuck us for the long term here, which would be bad.
On that note, Minnesota, Fate, and a bunch of other races, but especially if you're in Ward 2 and you don't turn out for Robin Wansley, I'm kicking you off of the Patreon.
Yeah, you're done.
You can't even give me money if you don't do that. But you gotta support Robin.
Should do it the other way around. But all right, folks, come and join us on the other side. We'll play some music and get started.
Peace.